Hello, welcome to the Ice Bath Sports channel. I'm Matt, and this is episode 1 of our Fixing the Franchise series. The team we'll be fixing this episode is the Chicago Bears. Now, before we jump into this, let me take a second to explain how this series is going to work. Each episode is going to feature an NFL team that struggled in some capacity during the 2023 season. Once the team's identified, I'll give a general summary of the team's situation. From there, I'll put myself in the shoes of that team's general manager and explain 5 key moves I would make in the offseason that would hopefully change the trajectory of the team, putting them in a place to succeed. With that out of the way, let's move on to the subject of this video, the Chicago Bears. Now, the Bears had an up and down 2023 season that resulted in a 7-10 finish, landing them last place in the NFC North. They're in a fairly tough division to begin with, as both the Lions and Packers made the playoffs this year. There's one thing that all the teams in the NFC North have in common. They've infused youth into the team. Both the Lions and Packers had outstanding draft classes that played a large part in their success. The Vikings also had a very talented young roster from top to bottom, but were decimated by injuries throughout the season. The division is going to be competitive for a long time, so the Bears need to focus on the future and not just next season. Moving on, what you're looking at on the screen is the 2023 regular season offensive rankings for each team based on cumulative yardage. The Bears had their fair share of struggles this season, finishing 20th overall. Bears starting quarterback Justin Fields did miss weeks 6 through 10, which didn't help their offensive ranking at all. Jumping up into the top half of the league in offensive rating should be a priority for 2024. Now, let's jump into the defensive side of the ball. The Chicago Bears struggled towards the start of the season, but really put everything together on defense in the second half of the year. The Bears finished with the 12th ranked defense in 2023. Finishing the top half of the league in defensive yards is a great start, but the Bears should look to improve on that in 2024. Finishing as a top 10 defense would make Chicago serious contenders. With the team stats out of the way, it's time to discuss players of significance for the Bears 2023 team. Obviously, we can't make a video about the Bears without addressing the elephant in the room, that is Justin Fields. The Bears selected Fields with the 11th pick of the 2021 NFL Draft, and he has had a lot of ups and downs in his career since arriving in Chicago. As can be seen by his 2023 stats, Fields wasn't the worst quarterback in the leagues by any means. Fields had a 5-7 record as the Bears starter, which isn't exactly ideal, but as mentioned earlier, he did miss 5 games due to injury. So far in his career, Fields has been a far better fantasy football quarterback than he has an actual functioning quarterback. It is worth noting that Fields has 1 more year on his rookie contract, but is a candidate to have his 5th-year option picked up. Although the Bears are rumored to move on from Fields, sticking with him would mean having to give him a new contract sooner rather than later. Staying on the offensive side of the ball, we have DJ Moore. Moore has been one of the bright spots on this Chicago team. As you can see, Moore had a phenomenal 2023 season and has further established himself as a wide receiver 1. The Bears acquired Moore when they traded down in the draft with the Panthers last season. Moore is under contract through 2025. Between his stats and his 89.4 grade from Pro Football Focus, Moore has proven to be a foundational piece that the Bears need to build the offensive around. The last offensive player that I'm going to highlight is Cole Kmet. Although his numbers aren't flashy, Kmet's playstyle is. He had some big games for the Bears down the stretch and made some huge plays. Kmet has gotten better every season since being drafted in 2020. Kmet's also a solid blocker in the run game. This season, the Bears signed their do-it-all tight end to a 4-year, $50 million deal that locks him up through 2027. Kmet is another foundational piece for this offense and will look to be the second receiving option behind DJ Moore. Switching gears, let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. The first defensive player we will highlight is newly acquired edge rusher Montez Sweat. The Bears gave Washington their 2024 second-round pick for Sweat halfway through the season. Remember how I said that the Bears defense put everything together in the second half of the year? Well, Montez Sweat is the main reason why. The graphic only shows Sweat's stats with Chicago, but before being traded, he had 6.5 sacks with Washington. Bringing in Sweat gave Chicago the pass rush that the defense desperately needed. Shortly after the Bears traded for Sweat, they gave him a massive 4-year, $98 million deal that locks him up through 2027. Sweat is a well-established pass rusher and will be a cornerstone of this defense. Moving up to the next level of the defense, we have Tremaine Edmunds. The Bears signed Edmunds in the 2023 offseason. He was given 4 years, $72 million to come over from Buffalo. Edmunds didn't disappoint statistically, having one of the better seasons of his career. He didn't grade out all that great with Pro Football Focus, but as long as he's still forcing turnovers and recording 100-plus tackles a season, he will be a key piece to this Bears defense. Edmunds wasn't the only linebacker that the Bears brought over in free agency in 2023. Chicago signed T.J. Edwards over from Philadelphia for 3 years, $19.5 million, and man was he worth every penny. Edwards was all over the field for the Chicago defense, putting up fantastic numbers and grading out well with Pro Football Focus. Edwards paired with Edmonds makes an awesome linebacker duo that can help anchor a Bears defense with a lot of potential. Let's move on up into the secondary now. Tyreek Stevenson had a very efficient rookie season. The 2023 second-round pick had several turnovers and a ton of tackles for a cornerback. Stevenson didn't grade out the best, but also didn't grade out terrible for being a rookie. The sky's the limit for this kid, and the Bears get him cheap for the next 3 seasons. He should be a nice piece for the secondary. The final player that I'm going to highlight also comes in the Bears secondary, and that is cornerback Jalen Johnson. We may have very well saved the best for last. Johnson is an elite quarterback 1, as you can tell by both his stats and Pro Football Focus grade. There were rumors that Johnson would be moved at the trade deadline, but nothing really materialized. It isn't every day that a team comes into possession of a cornerback 1, which is why trading Jalen Johnson would have been a huge mistake. The only issue is that he's a free agent this year. But I couldn't have asked for a better segue into the first move I would make to fix this franchise. The first thing I would do is re-sign Jalen Johnson. Out of all the Bears 2024 free agents, Jalen Johnson takes priority. I would give him whatever contract he wants in order to keep him, but for the sake of this video, we'll go by his market value. As you can see, his market value would be about 5 years for $78 million. With Jalen Johnson re-signed, the Bears would now have an elite playmaker at every level of their defense, and a fantastic foundation in their secondary. Johnson is one of 4 starters set to hit free agency. The other 3 include wide receiver Darnell Mooney, defensive tackle Justin Jones, and defensive end Yannick Ngakoue. I would probably let those 3 walk unless I could get them to re-sign on very cheap contracts. Now, have it be said, I'm not all that worried about financials, as the Bears have a decent amount of cap room. The Bears currently have just under $50 million in cap room, but that number should increase as they make cuts. The second move I would make to fix the Bears is to sign Justin Madubuike in free agency. I hope I said his last name right. Madubuike had a breakout season for the Ravens in 2023. He had 13 sacks, 12 tackles for loss, and 33 quarterback hits. D-line is a substantial need for the Bears, and Madubuike would be a huge upgrade for the interior of this team's defensive line. This is the kind of move that could take Chicago's defense into the top 10. Other notable free agent defensive tackles that I contemplated were DJ Reader from the Bengals and Christian Wilkins from the Dolphins. Similar to Jalen Johnson, I determined Madubuike's contract based on market value, which would be a 4-year, $80 million contract. This move would give the Bears at least 2 star players at each level of their defense. I'm not done making moves in free agency. The third move I would make for the Chicago Bears team is to sign Saints wide receiver Rashid Shaheed. We've addressed the defensive needs, so now let's address the offense. The Bears have a great wide receiver 1 in DJ Moore, but with Darnell Mooney hitting free agency, they could use a number 2. None of the wide receivers under contract are capable of filling that role, so we look to free agency, where we get a serviceable deep threat in Shaheed. Shaheed had 46 catches for 719 yards and 5 touchdowns in 2023, which was higher production than Mooney had. Market value for Shaheed would suggest a 2-year, $21 million deal, which is what we'd probably give him. The other 2 free agent wide receiver options I considered were Michael Pittman Jr. from the Colts and Gabe Davis from the Bills. Having DJ Moore and Cole Kmet as the main targets, Shaheed offers a solid third option that can stretch the field. Shaheed is an above-average band-aid, as the 2024 draft class is loaded with wide receiver talent, and we can potentially draft Shaheed's successor there. Now that we've covered the highlights of free agency, it's time to move on to what might be the most exciting part of the NFL offseason, the NFL draft. Now, the fourth move we're making is going to come before the draft. We will be trading quarterback Justin Fields. Bears fans are very split on whether Chicago should stick with Fields and trade out of the number 1 overall pick, or if they should trade Fields and take a quarterback at 1. Obviously, you can see where this is going. If it were up to me, I would trade Justin Fields, and I have 3 words to describe why I made this decision. Time and money. If the Bears keep Justin Fields, they have to pay him the next year or 2, and paying a quarterback is never cheap. Also, Fields is almost 25 years old at the time I make this video. Drafting a quarterback allows the Bears to have financial freedom for the next 5 seasons while also shedding off a few years of their starting quarterback's age. It is also worth noting that Fields hasn't exactly been consistent. He is still a work in progress. A rookie quarterback is the younger and cheaper option and too appealing to pass up, especially if you have to develop either quarterback anyways. The Bears also hold the first pick in the draft because of their trade with Carolina last season. This is a dream scenario for most teams, as the 2024 quarterback class has a ton of talent and Chicago has their pick of the litter. Getting back on track here, I didn't list a specific team here as a trade partner for Fields, but in a perfect world, it would be the Atlanta Falcons. They're quarterback away and could very well go after an established quarterback rather than a rookie. Now, I determined the trade compensation for Fields by looking into past situations similar to this one. The scenario that stood out most to me was when the Arizona Cardinals drafted quarterback Kyler Murray first overall in 2019, despite taking Josh Rosen in the first round the year prior. The Cardinals moved on from Rosen by trading him to the Miami Dolphins. In return, Arizona received a second and a fifth-round draft pick, the same compensation I would expect the Bears to receive for Fields. This additional draft capital will further help build a team around the Bears quarterback of the future. Speaking of which, let's move on to our fifth and final move of the offseason, which is drafting quarterback Caleb Williams first overall. Caleb Williams has been the consensus number one pick in 2024 for over a year now. He's a phenomenal talent at the quarterback position, has a very similar play style to Patrick Mahomes. He's pro-ready and has a much higher ceiling than Justin Fields. Chicago gets their franchise quarterback and doesn't have to sacrifice anything to get him. Now, before I move on to what the Bears' 2024 starting lineups could look like, I'd like to add on to this Caleb Williams move. I used a mock draft simulator to create a 7-round mock draft for the Chicago Bears. If all goes to plan, the Bears' 2024 draft class would consist of the following. Quarterback Caleb Williams at pick 1. Edge Dallas Turner at pick 9. Running back Blake Corum at pick 75. Wide receiver Jalen McMillan at pick 110. O-line Donovan Jackson at pick 125. And O-line Bo Limmer at pick 142. With a draft like this, Chicago would get another edge rusher to pair with Montez Sweat to further solidify the defense. They'd also get their franchise quarterback and a handful of offensive weapons to help him out. Now, before I conclude this video, let's take a look at what the Chicago Bears starting lineup would look like going into 2024. On offense, starting quarterback Caleb Williams, running back Blake Corum, wide receiver 1 DJ Moore, wide receiver 2 Rashid Shaheed, wide receiver 3 Jalen McMillan, tight end Cole Kmet. At left tackle, we have Braxton Jones, left guard Tevin Jenkins, center Cody Whitehair, right guard Nate Davis, and right tackle Darnell Wright. Now on defense, right end, we have Montez Sweat, D tackle Justin Matabuki, other defensive tackle Gervin Dexter, left end Dallas Turner, linebacker Tremaine Edmonds, linebacker TJ Edwards, cornerback 1 Jalen Johnson, quarterback 2 Tyreek Stevenson, cornerback 3 Kyler Gordon. Free safety would be Eddie Jackson, and strong safety would be Jaquan Brisker. I personally think this team has a ton of potential, but I want to hear what you think. If you made it this far, make sure to comment below what this team's record would be in 2024, and if you think they can make the playoffs. If you like this video, please drop a like, and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, stay cool.